There is a room you inhabit every single day. Its walls are invisible, yet they constrain your every move. Its bars are not made of iron, but of light, reflections, and the quiet, persistent hum of judgment. This room is a cage, and it is built from the ideal of beauty. You feel its presence when you glance in a mirror, and a critical voice, one that sounds suspiciously like your own, begins its ruthless inventory. You feel it in the slight hesitation before posting a photograph, in the calculus of angles and filters. You feel it in the silent comparison that flickers through your mind when another woman walks into a room. It is a pressure that is both intimately personal and massively public, a weight you are told is yours alone to bear, yet one that is placed upon you by a force so vast, it seems like air itself. This feeling is not a personal failing, it is not vanity, it is not insecurity born from nothing. It is the psychic toll of living within a powerful, pervasive ideology. This is the recognition that the cage is real. To understand this cage, we must turn to the work of a thinker who did not just peek through its bars, but who drew up its architectural blueprints for all to see. In 1990, Naomi Wolf published a book that acted as a key, unlocking the prison for millions. That book was The Beauty Myth. Wolf, a third-wave feminist writer and journalist, presented a startling and powerful framework. She argued that just as women began to gain unprecedented legal and economic power, a new, more subtle form of social control took hold. This control was not exercised through laws or overt discrimination, but through the insidious pressure to adhere to an ever-narrowing, ever more expensive, and ever more relatable standard of physical perfection. The core concept Wolf gave us is this: the beauty myth is not about aesthetics, it is about power. It is a political weapon, not a celebration of female beauty. She called it the last, best belief system that keeps male dominance intact. It works by prescribing a specific, standardized ideal of beauty, and then punishing women physically, psychologically, and financially for failing to achieve it. It is a currency system that keeps women in a state of perpetual self-hatred, anxiety, and competition. Let us deconstruct this. Let's walk through the invisible architecture of this cage and see how it operates in the most intimate corners of your life, using Wolf's framework as our guide. First, consider your career. The beauty myth creates what Wolf calls the professional beauty qualification, or PBQ. This is an unspoken, unlisted job requirement for women. It suggests that a woman's competence, her intelligence, her very suitability for a role, is judged, in part, by how closely she adheres to the dominant beauty standard. Think of the immense, uncredited labor that goes into the professional appearance, the careful selection of clothing that must be stylish but not distracting, the application of makeup that must be present but natural. It's a tightrope walk. Too much adornment and you are seen as frivolous or unprofessional. Too little, and you are perceived as not taking yourself or your career seriously, as letting yourself go. This is a tax on your time, your finances, and your mental energy that is rarely, if ever, levied on your male counterparts in the same way. The cost of suits and serums, of haircuts and subtle highlights, adds up to a real, tangible financial burden. Wolf argues this is not accidental. It is a system that ensures women, even as they enter the workforce in greater numbers, are still channeling a significant portion of their earnings and energy back into the very system that seeks to constrain them. Now, let's bring this into the realm of relationships. The beauty myth thrives on creating a hierarchy, pitting woman against woman in a silent, lifelong competition for male validation. It teaches us from a young age to see other women not as potential allies, but as rivals on a spectrum of beauty. We learn to measure ourselves against them, to catalog their perceived flaws, to soothe our own insecurities about our own. This erodes the possibility of genuine female solidarity. It keeps us isolated, focused on the surface, and distracted from challenging the very structures that are creating this rivalry in the first place. It also distorts our relationship with our own bodies. The myth disconnects us from the experience of living within our bodies, their strength, their pleasure, their resilience, and forces us to see them as objects to be viewed from the outside. You become the surveyor and the surveyed. You are simultaneously the artist and the flawed canvas, endlessly critiquing, endlessly striving to correct, polish, and perfect the image for an unseen, judgmental audience. This externalized gaze becomes internalized. It is the voice that tells you that you are too much of one thing and not enough of another, too big, too small, too old, too dark, too wrinkled, too human. It is a voice that profits from your belief that your body, in its natural state, is a problem to be solved. Consider the language of the beauty industry. It is a language of warfare. We fight wrinkles, combat celluloid, conquer frizz, and banish blemishes. The implication is clear. Your natural aging process, your very biology, is an enemy to be defeated. The standards themselves are a moving target, designed to be unattainable. In one era, the ideal is voluptuous and pale. In another, it is androgynous and rail-thin. Then it becomes athletic and toned, but with specific curves in government-approved locations. Naomi Wolf pointed out that this ideal is often a composite, a Frankenbeauty created by airbrushing and, today, digital alteration. It is a face and body that does not exist in nature. The goal of the myth is not for you to achieve the ideal. The goal is for you to pursue it endlessly. The pursuit is what is profitable. The pursuit is what keeps you occupied. The industry built on this myth needs your insecurity. It is the fuel on which it runs. Your peace of mind is its primary competitor. Let's look at the myth's relationship with age. Wolf describes this as a particularly cruel aspect of the system. A woman's value, the myth insists, is inextricably tied to her youth. As a woman ages, she is seen as moving further and further away from the ideal, and therefore, her value in this currency system depreciates. The appearance of aging in a woman is treated as a moral failing. Wrinkles are not seen as maps of a life lived, of laughter and wisdom. They are seen as defects. Gray hair is not a sign of maturity, but a mark of having given up. This instills a deep terror of the natural aging process. It forces women into a frantic, expensive, and ultimately losing battle against time itself. It also robs society of the sight of older women's faces, uninjected and unlifted. It erases the visual representation of female power that exists beyond the narrow confines of youthful, reproductive beauty. The myth tells you that to be an older woman is to be slowly fading into irrelevance and invisibility. This is a political act. It silences the voices that have the most life experience to share. And what about the psychological cost? The relentless pursuit of an impossible standard breeds a host of anxieties. It is linked to disordered eating, body dysmorphia, depression, and a pervasive, low-grade sense of inadequacy. You begin to believe that your happiness, your worthiness of love, your very right to take up space, is conditional upon your appearance. You might find yourself saying no to opportunities: a day at the beach, a dance class, a speaking engagement because you don't feel you look the part. The cage shrinks your world, one no at a time. You might postpone joy, telling yourself, I'll be happy when I lose 10 pounds, or I'll feel confident once my skin clears up. You place your life on hold, waiting for a physical transformation that you believe will finally grant you permission to live it. This is the myth's ultimate function: to distract you from your own life, to divert your precious, finite resources of time, money, and focus away from your ambitions, your passions, your activism, and your joy. It is a system of sedation, a beautiful, glittering, well-marketed sedative. It keeps you running on a hamster wheel of self-improvement, so you are too tired to look up and question the wheel itself. Wolf's analysis reveals that the images you are bombarded with every day in magazines, on social media, in films are not neutral. They are prescriptive. They are propaganda for an ideology. They create a reality where the baseline for female appearance is a highly curated, digitally manipulated fantasy. Your own face in the mirror, in all its human, asymmetrical, and expressive glory, is then judged against this fantasy and found wanting. This is why you can look at a photograph of yourself and see only flaws, while others see your warmth, your intelligence, your life force. You have been trained to look at yourself with the cold, critical eye of the myth. You have been taught to be the warden of your own prison. The myth also adapts. As feminist waves have made it less acceptable to openly state that a woman's place is in the home, the myth has provided a new, empowered narrative. This new narrative copts the language of health, wellness, and self-care. The grueling diets become clean eating. The punishing exercise routines become fitness journeys. The expensive cosmetic procedures become self-care investments. It's a clever rebranding, but the underlying pressure remains the same. The goal is still a highly specific, aesthetic outcome. It conflates discipline with virtue, and aesthetic success with moral superiority. It suggests that your body is a project to be endlessly managed and optimized, a testament to your discipline and worth. But a life spent solely on the project of the self is a life turned inward, away from the world. The cage is not just about how you look, it's about how you are prevented from being. It's about the woman you might have been if you hadn't spent so much time, energy, and money trying to fix a body that was never broken. Think of the books you could have read, the skills you could have learned, the businesses you could have started, the movements you could have joined with the energy you have poured into the mirror. Think of the sheer, unburdened joy of moving through the world inside a body you treated as a home and a companion, rather than a recalcitrant enemy or an ornamental facade. This is the true theft that the beauty myth commits. It steals your focus, it steals your resources, it steals your solidarity, and most of all, it steals your peace. The deconstruction is painful, because it means acknowledging how deeply this ideology has wounded us, but it is also the necessary first step. You cannot dismantle a cage you do not see. Now, you see it. You see the bars made of Instagram filters and anti-aging creams. You see the lock forged from the fear of judgment. You see the warden, and you recognize the sound of its voice. And here, in this moment of recognition, lies the beginning of your liberation. The central, liberating truth of Naomi Wolf's work is this: your beauty is not the rent you pay to exist in the world as a woman. Let that sink in. Your worth is not measured by your proximity to a commercially driven, politically motivated ideal. It is inherent, it is absolute, it was never in question. The beauty myth is a lie. A comprehensive, sophisticated, and profitable lie, but a lie nonetheless. Seeing it as a lie is the act of rebellion that unlocks the cage door. It is not your body that is wrong, it is the myth, it is the lens, it is the standard. You are not the one who needs to be fixed. The system is what is broken. This recognition is the anagnorisis. It is the critical shift from what is wrong with me to what is wrong with this. It is the moment you stop trying to contort yourself to fit the cage, and instead, you turn your attention to the cage itself. The alternative, the archetype of the authentic self that waits outside this prison, is not an ugly woman or a woman who doesn't care. That is a false dichotomy created by the myth itself to scare you back inside. The archetype is the embodied woman, a woman who lives in her body, not for it. The embodied woman treats her body not as an ornament, but as her primary instrument for experiencing the world. It is the source of her senses, her strength, her pleasure, her intuition. She nourishes it because she respects its function, not because she is at war with its form. She moves it for the joy of movement, not as a punishment for eating. She adorns herself, if she chooses, as an act of self-expression and play, not as a compulsory act of conformity or camouflage. The distinction is everything. It is the distinction between art and armor. The embodied woman reclaims her face. She allows her life to be written upon it. She sees her wrinkles and her scars not as flaws, but as evidence of a life fully lived. As testaments to resilience and laughter and sorrow and survival. She rejects the competition. She learns to look at other women and see allies, sisters, fellow survivors of the same ideological warfare. She seeks out their strengths and celebrates them, knowing that another woman's light does not diminish her own. She reclaims her power of gaze. Instead of seeing herself through the critical, external lens of the myth, she looks inward for validation. She also looks outward, at the world, with her full attention, no longer distracted by her own reflection. Liberating yourself from the beauty myth does not mean you will never again feel a pang of insecurity. The propaganda is everywhere. But now, you will have a name for it. You can identify it as an external force, as the psychic pollution it is, rather than internalizing it as a personal truth. You can see the advertisement, the filtered image, the critical thought, and you can say to yourself, that is the myth talking, and I do not subscribe to that belief system. This is the beginning of the great work, the integration of this knowledge into a new way of being. This is the existential challenge. Integration begins with a conscious withdrawal of your consent. You must stop paying the rent. This can start in small, quiet ways. It is the decision to unfollow social media accounts that leave you feeling worse about yourself. It is choosing to buy clothes that feel good on your body, rather than ones that promise to flatter or fix your shape. It is the practice of looking in the mirror and finding one thing to thank your body for, instead of listing its perceived faults. Thank you, legs, for carrying me today. Thank you, hands, for the work you do. It is about shifting your internal monologue. When the critical voice begins its litany, You can learn to interrupt it. You can introduce a new voice, a kinder one. The voice of the embodied woman. This new voice does not lie and say, I am perfect. It tells a deeper truth. I am more than my appearance. My worth is not in this reflection. Integration is about reclaiming your time and energy. Take 1 hour of the time you might have spent on grooming, scrolling, or worrying about your appearance, and dedicate it to something that feeds your mind or your soul. Read a book, learn a language, call a friend. Redefine beauty for yourself, on your own terms. See it in courage, in intelligence, in kindness, in resilience. See it in the faces of the women you admire for their character, not their compliance with the myth. Seek out images of real women, of all ages, shapes, and sizes. Normalize the normal. Your visual diet matters as much as your nutritional one. Flood your consciousness with truth. This is a practice of defiance. It is a quiet, daily revolution against a multi-billion-dollar industry and a centuries-old ideology. It will not be easy. The world will try to pull you back into the cage. It will praise you when you conform and question you when you deviate. But your liberation is not contingent on the world's approval. It is an internal stance. It is the reclamation of the architecture of your own self. You are not an object to be looked at. You are the one who sees. You are not a body. You have a body. And it is your birthright to live in it, peacefully and powerfully, for the entirety of your one, precious, and magnificent life. The door to the cage is open. The choice is not to become beautiful enough to be free. The choice is to realize you were born free to begin with. Walk out,